Hello, how are we doing, everyone? It's Mark Ray, Friday stream time with Newtown Ghosts. Today we're going to be looking at the creation of character and how we would achieve that in both songwriting and in the form of the novel. So, as you all know, my novel and soundtrack is up for pre-order now at mark-ray.com. So thanks for all the support on that. So today we're going to be looking at the blending of my own experience and the creation of characters in the book. We're going to be listening to some recordings from the 70s and looking at some Kodachrome photographs from the 70s as well, and then talking about how we develop character. And I've collected some bits and bobs to go through with that, and then also touching a little bit on neurodiversity and the use of the skills that gives us. Okay, so just starting off there visually with the album and book cover, and let's have a look at what we've got as we begin. So I wanted to discuss a little bit Marcel Proust, who's a French writer from the late 19th century and into the 1920s. Very interesting character, and the reason why I'm mentioning him is a lot of you will know without really knowing that you do know one of his key moments in novel writing is he came up with the idea of eating a Madeleine and the flavour of it dipped in tea, driving him all the way back to his childhood, and that's called the Madeleine moment in a book called In Search of Lost Time, which is a fabulously interesting novel in the sense that it's written with extremely deep descriptions of things like falling asleep, and it actually had quite a meditative effect on me when I read it, but it's quite beautiful. But I like this idea of his actual quote was, "The true paradises are the paradises we have lost." Now, that's quite a profound statement, which I'm not quite prepared to go into now because we've got some fun things to look at, but maybe we'll talk about it afterwards, about what that means to me as a statement. Okay, and then I thought I'd do some of these lists that I've grabbed from a screen grab from the internet about developing character. Now, can I just say that I'm not a big fan of lists or controlled thinking, which is part of my neurodiversity, which, as we discussed last week, I've sort of used it as a positive thing. So if someone gives me a list or a way of doing something, I can already feel like the curtains of concentration and interest being closed off. And obviously there's pros and cons to that. But here, let's give you a chance to not think like me. Start with a character archetype. Okay. We'll see as we go on. I'm going to focus on the three boy characters in this novel, Newtown Ghosts. So with Simon Radcliffe, he's a boy who's dealing with selfishness, and that's going to relate to doing his chores. So that's quite a strong point and actually a central theme of the book. There's also a boy called Squeaky who is living in poverty, and his mother is an alcoholic. And then there's another boy called Rubber Knees, who's called that because he can jump off garage roofs and land on his knees. Of course, that's how nicknames worked in the Northeast in the 70s. So basically adding specific characteristics, which I've just done there. We're going to build some backstory within the way we tell. When we tell a story, we might go, oh, and then remember when back then and you did this. That's how we build backstory in the written word. But obviously, before we start as an author, we need to convince ourselves of the existence of all these people. And in the case of my novel here, Simon Radcliffe, as I've told you, is based in part on myself. But the other two characters, I did make them up, but they're based on lots of different elements from my experience. Okay, so I had to build their backstory. So that is truly going into fiction. Give them quirks, faults, and flaws. Of course, you'll see Squeaky's called Squeaky because his two front teeth got knocked out when he fell off his chopper bike, and he squeaks with the sound of squeak, like that. So that's one way of remembering him. So the character arcs, of course, I think a lot of people will tell you at the beginning of your journey that, novels work in the law of threes, 3 acts, introduction, setting things up. Second act is some action leading to a cliffhanger, and then the third act is resolution. I often think that pop songs work specifically like that, with verses, choruses, and middle eights. But what I've found interesting to think about is the law of threes is nicely applicable to lots of things. But I think in a novel, the law of twos is very important, and let me describe that in a little bit more depth. So if you've got somebody who's well off, it might be good to have somebody who's poor. If you've got somebody that's going to drown at the end of the book, it might be worth having bits of water dripping on their forehead in the first few sentences of the first chapter. So in a way, the law of twos there is about mirroring. And it's important that if you're going to introduce themes or concepts within a character, that you don't just say, oh, well, he does that. Well, you want to say, yeah, he falls off his bike because he's got bendy knees. Why has he got bendy knees? Well, the opposite of that is he's not being fed properly. And then the other boy is, and the other boy's trying to give him food. And you see, we start to develop a storyline between the interaction of thematic positions within character. And then add visual references, which I'm just about to do. I mean, obviously, you're describing those things, but one of the key things that you learn in writing novels is that you must show rather than tell. So you create a scenario where the reader thinks, oh, God, that person's really fortunate, unfortunate. Oh, dear, they're sad. Oh, dear, whatever. Rather than saying he was sad, you would say, the tear ran down his cheek and caught on his lip and he could taste the salt or something like that. So then you are describing it and you're showing rather than telling. People don't like to be told, or as we say in Geordie, people don't like to be telt. And being telt is a reaction in lots of different parts of people's lives that they don't like. So organise and refine. Listen, when you're making something that takes a few years to write, the whole process is organize and refine. That's what I would call editing. And in the end, the writing is in the editing because, your brain farts of creativity. Like, I'm going to describe something at a bus stop now where a hedgehog flies up in the air and hits him in the face. And you write all this ridiculous stuff. And you come back a few weeks later, you're going, no, that's not useful in a novel. But it was fun writing it. And I think, for any of you that are going to go on this journey of writing, you've got to be very prepared to write tens of thousands of words that you will throw away, and that will make you feel sick at first, but that's the whole point. You're in essence developing your ability to write, and you'll see where the refining and organization happens in the edit. And later on in these streams, I'm going to talk about the whole process of putting a book together as a self-published artist and writer, because I think it's a process that I understand, having done it 3 times. So I'm happy to share that with you. And then here we go, create the rest of your characters, number 8. So, okay, let's keep it moving then, because now it's going to get more fun again and not words. Words and lists and thinking. Who wants that? You want to feel something. Okay, so could you write a book with these characters in? Well, they're saying a lot, aren't they? They're kind of like the type of kids who'd crawl out the back door on a 70s summer afternoon and not come back for 6 hours. And what did they get up to for those 6 hours? Well, that's a lot of what Newtown Ghost is about. It's about what children used to do in the 70s because they didn't have screens. There was nothing good on television. It was like Crown Court and things in the afternoon if you were sick off school, and it'd be like, oh my God, they're talking about murders on the TV. So in essence, you had to make your own fun, and these children here represent that. And of course, that's myself and my next door neighbours and my father having fun by putting a tent up next to the garage. I mean, what more could you want? You're in a tent, okay, without having to travel far. Okay, so moving on. This is something that was a real light bulb moment in the writing of this novel when I thought I can really capture these kids' central tenets of their personalities through their comics that they like. So Squeaky's from the wrong side of the tracks, and no one's really watching out for him. So he gets Action Comic, which subsequently was so violent that it was banned, and this is in real life. So I thought, well, yeah, but what about, if he just gets it and it's got sharks chewing people on the front and blood everywhere on the insides? Then that's a good way of defining Squeaky. And then for Rubber, who's going to have a military angle, the one who can jump off garages and land on his knees, he's obsessed with the Mice of Tobruk, which is a story about 4 children in the tunnels of Tobruk in World War II attacking Germans. And look at that rather sort of old, out-of-date tagline, "Look out, Jerry's." Now, obviously, that could be seen as being nationalist and wrong, but listen, this is the 70s, the era we were brought up in. I bought these comics in order to develop the characters so that I could actually go back into that mindscape of being that kid of that age again. And those comics were terrifying. Really, and I mean, I'm not saying it, for effect. Honestly, every page was dark and black or blood, and the ink and sharks and Germans and Nazis and people on fire and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was like, wow, is this what they gave to 10-year-old boys in the 70s? Well, of course they did, if you could get it through the door. So the juxtaposition there, Rubber Knees, he's got an interest in the military, and that will develop in the book because his dad used to be in the army. And then look at this. This is the front cover of Bullet, which you'd get the Mice of Tobruk. And what does that say? Thumbs down, the sign of death for the defeated gladiator. You'd be like, Mum, can I get that one? That's the comic I want, with some death on the front. So anyway, this is the comic that Simon Radcliffe, who's supposed to be the softer character who is dealing with guilt and his own selfishness, and he gets Monster Fun, which is 7 pence. And of course, it's the counter position. So Action had very aggressive sharks with huge teeth and blood on the cover. Then we had the kid who's into the war, who's Rubber, and then Simon is, soft and dealing with some things to do with guilt. And here he is, he likes gums. And when he reads it, it stops him feeling guilty about making his mother's rheumatoid arthritis come into effect. Okay, so that's the use of comics within a novel to set 3 character types. So it's the type of thing that you would just read something and think, oh, well, whatever. But as an author, you're already setting your stall out with how you want people to perceive the characters, okay? Okay, so let's move on. What have we got here? Now, okay, of course, the food that people eat, it's just a little added thing. But for those who experienced Blobs, fizzy cider flavour drops, which had other recipes, Dracula steak, bats, shark-infested custard, and shiver shandy, then what a ridiculous era. So, if you were somebody just wanting, as an author, to add a little bit of flavour, then you say, the blob packets in the bottom of his crumbs of his anorak, and it's real, it's true. So there it is. So for those of you who don't remember Blobs, that's what Trebor Blobs used to look like. Phenomenal design. And then Spangles, which of course, Old English flavours. What is Old English flavours? I mean, it sounds like some kind of American lager. Okay, and then I think these gold nuggets, ours were called Gold Rush. And they were like little bits of, looked like mice's teeth. But they were chewing gum, and you just add them in till it was a big ball, and then probably throw it in the gold nugget packet and throw it away. So yes, these are all items that I've got the characters buying in shops. The smell of bubblegum dust and fountain pen ink and all these things. The bell on a door when you walk into a newsagent. All these things that are deep part of our memories, that you have to make the world that you're writing about real. You have to actually be there. And, when I was writing and when I am writing, I spend 2 hours of the day breaking my brain, being in that place, being those characters and letting them develop like a sponge would absorb water. And it's funny because Marcel Proust talks about, after he's eaten the Madeleine, he talks about the Japanese pieces of paper that if you put in water, they would expand outwards into being a huge, he describes it as, as the Japanese would watch the paper expand into, an elaborate flower. Or he could see, as he tasted the Madeleine, the expansion of all of these places from his childhood. The door to his grandmother's house, the corridors with the paintings, the pond with the lilies, all these things actually came to life. Now, I think that he probably actually experienced that. I think I've only experienced it twice. I think it was once with a song and once with a smell, where you are quite frighteningly transported exactly back to that time, and it's almost it's like a spiritual flash of who you used to be, and that's people who love Marcel Proust realize that in essence the way he describes scenarios is it becomes a description of aging of yourself, and it's a very interactive book in that way. So anyway, moving on from chewing gum and French authors. This is a key moment. In '75, Jaws was the biggest. It was the first ever blockbuster movie, Jaws. And I watched it a few years ago while I was preparing this book, because I wanted to make the children going to see it a very central part of the experience, because they see a skateboard short film before, which sets them off. Okay, so that's a game that I believe I thought I had this, because I remember the skull at the bottom that you can see there that you would pull out of Jaws's mouth. Okay, the boys want a skateboard. It's a Grentech Coyote. Look at the beautiful red glow in the dark, not glow in the dark at all. The see-through wheels that would glow in the sunshine. And then I wanted to put these quotes in here because it's talking a bit about my approach to how you develop characters. Writers aren't people exactly, or if they're any good, they're a whole lot of people trying so hard to be one person. Now, that could be a description of neurodiversity or certain other psychological positions, but you can see how being able to find dialogue from people in your head or experience life over emotionally could be an actual positive neurodiverse skill that allows you to write well as an author. And certainly I feel that way about my experience of my own brain. And then I love this one from Virginia Woolf, because it's in essence describing a bit in what I'm doing here. If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people. So you have to go very deeply inside yourself. I often, I only read Dostoevsky recently, but Crime and Punishment, when I read that, I thought, to the author, I was thinking, did you actually murder someone? Because it feels like he was guilty when you read that, and you do wonder. Okay, moving on. So I'll show you myself. This is me aged, I think, 10, 11 or 12, drawing a shark because I'm so obsessed with it. And it says, Jaws cleans his teeth. Gums does not. Okay, so Gums the shark on the front of Monster Fun. I was trying to say that Jaws the shark used Crest to clean his teeth. And it's ridiculous. And then you see you've got like a picture of a human being bleeding there. So basically I'm doing an advert for Crest for Jaws. And one thing that did make me laugh was at the side of this, it's got a Gums's friend. I got a filling today, Mum. And then it's got Gums's mum touching wood. The concept of a shark touching wood so that his son would be lucky with losing his teeth is phenomenal, I think. And maybe that's an origin point of me being able to come up with absolutely ridiculous ideas. But anyway, that's me as a child. And here I am, and you can see something going on with that photograph, and there's a lot of thought going on there. I don't know if I've got eyebrows. They're either blonde or I decided to shave them off. Could have been both. And here I am hanging a dead mouse on a piece of string over my sister's head, which, believe me, in 1976 was a good game to play, I'm sure. Animals and creatures feature heavily in this novel. Simon has a squirrel that dances around his brain, which is an expression of attention deficit, and obviously a lot of people experience that when they're supposed to be paying attention in school. And speaking of which, I managed to find some school books. Look at how a school book here from the mid-'70s, somehow some 1960s wallpaper has been used to cover it. And inside I've got corrections. This is actually a book of mine where I've got nose, 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 right. I've got right nose out, the right spelling. D, right D, times 10 times. It's just a weird little reminder of how punishing sometimes. Ray, stay behind and write out, I will not throw things at the blackboard 100 times. It's just like the beginning of The Simpsons, huh? Okay, swimming plays a large part, as you'll find out when you read the novel. And I wanted to talk about, so Squeaky fell off a chopper in order to lose his teeth that makes him being called Squeaky. And I thought, well, I could show a picture of a chopper. I thought, no, show the gear stick, because that's what I remember the most, was the sign on the back saying, do not take pillion passengers. Now, the term pillion literally means nothing to a 10-year-old boy. It could mean, like a squid or something from the depths. What's a pillion? But anyway, it's obviously a backer, as we would call them, someone jumping on the back of your chopper. But just looking at this in a Proustian manner, I'm right back in the mid-70s, that weird, ridiculous gear stick that if you ever fell off and went forward, it would take all your special bits off. So you got to be careful when riding a chopper. And then development of character using concepts. So Squeaky's granddad, he doesn't have a dad, or so we know, don't think so at the beginning. And his granddad steals Get Smash packets from Presto, so that's an element. And then his mum drinks Babycham, which, you see, these things are invented, and they're a way of creating tension within a novel. So obviously this kid wants a dad, and he's attracted to Simon's dad because he can see what a man should be to his son, teach him things, show him love, and, be there for him. He doesn't have that. So that's a great action of twos, talk about the laws of threes, this mirroring. So Simon has a great dad, Squeaky doesn't have a dad, and that's a really strong element. And these are the background parts of the character going on here. So also so by the way, thanks for streaming The Place I Call My Home, which I'll give you a little blast of again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something pretty crazy here. I'm going to play a 1974 recording of me talking about the Poseidon adventure in the bath that my dad taped over this instrumental. That's my dad doing Open University there.
Yes. When we were in the kitchen, and then
Let me just stop the music.
Like a watertight door? Net.
Yes.
Net. And then net, but it was really made out of metal, like chains going across like that, and he done that with a crowbar, and then they went along, and then they were halfway through, and the water started building up, and then suddenly it got in, and then there was this great big tunnel, and thing, and then they came out the end of these ladders. You see ladders there,
yes.
Right? And there's a great big thing with steam.
I mean, that's really quite a bizarre experience for me. That's me, aged probably about 8, talking about the Poseidon adventure. First of all, who would take an 8-year-old to see the Poseidon adventure? It's ridiculous. They didn't have like ages for films back then. I mean, I shouldn't have seen Jaws. I'm still getting over Jaws now. But you can see with the Poseidon adventure there, I'm talking about tunnels, and I've got a little Geordie accent, and it worries me and saddens me that I've lost my little Geordie accent, because it's quite beautiful, and that's me. So in order to get into this character, to go into this place, to write this story, I had to become that person again. I'm asking lots of questions, and I'm worried about this, and what happens then? Why is the sharks here? And why Squeaky not got a dad? And Rubber can jump off garages and stuff. So anyway, the next single is called The Seaburn Bat Lads. And on the left-hand side here, you'll see the Star Jumper in green and yellow. I met a gang when I was 10-year-old, and they were wearing these green and yellow Star Jumpers, and they were terrifying people. And leading up to the Seaburn Bat Lads, which is the next single, I'm going to be talking about that. And just another reminder, this is the package that you get when you buy this project. If you buy the novel, you'll get a CD which has the acoustic and instrumental versions of the album, and they're free. so the novel costs a tenner, and you get a free album in acoustic version. And then, but if you buy the vinyl, which is 20 quid, you get the book for free. So listen, I'm doing this because I'm into art and the exploration of the human mind. I'm also here to express the experience of neurodiversity and how I can make art with it, because it is quite a power. And I want that to be a welcoming message to people who are in tough moments with their brain and their mind, and to show people that you can survive differences in your mind and make something special with it. And yeah, so anyway, that's that. I just wanted to leave you with one last photograph. And it's about a central core of this book is about childhood friendship and how it's challenged when children move away, and they might have the best friends, and then they've got to move at 10 to a new place, or 12. And that's a very painful experience. And that's a universal message in this book, is about surviving these things, and the friendship. And you see, today I'm wearing, I want to give a big shout out to Norman J, because I'm actually wearing Norman J's 1970s recreation of the England strip, and this is me and my friend David Kelly, and he's wearing the same strip, and this is the recreation of it. And that's just showing the blurring the lines between fiction and experience, and what we're going here. So anyway, you've heard about the development of character and how I used it in the Newtown Ghost project. We'll be looking at lots of other different things about how you develop novels and songs, and use musicians, and how musicians help and can create ideas, and how lyrics work within a novel structure as well. And that'll all be coming in the weeks ahead. Thank you very much for listening to Newtown Ghost stream number 2, Building Character. And for now, I think I'll have to go. Wish you all a great weekend. I'm out of here. Peace.